welcome to our English news coming to you from Canal Algeria. First, the top stories of the news. Algeria is a sovereign state rejecting all the Emirati attempt to undermine its unity and identity components. Algeria celebrates the World Press Freedom Day within an atmosphere marked by major efforts made by the state to ensure professional and transparent framework. New revelations in the CRT file displaying suspicious expenditures in financing the election campaign. More details to discover in our news. Abubakar Sisi killed while praying in France is buried with the faithful denouncing the heinous crime. Welcome back. First in our news once again, and despite both direct and indirect warnings, the fabricated statelets of the United Arab Emirates launched attacks on the sovereign Algeria, the land of martyrs, merely to carry more favor with those unsettled by Algeria's stability and progress. Here is the full story with both Sonia Gassi and Leticia Sadqawi.
This is not the first time that the fabricated state of the UAE has launched baseless attacks against sovereign Algeria, a nation with deep roots and historic grandeur, driven by nothing but a desire to prove greater loyalty to similarly artificial entities and to manage master's dog's body, who are disturbed by Algeria's proud legacy of resistance, its hard-earned stability, and its deeply embedded identity carved into the depths of human history. Despite Algeria's renowned wisdom, patience, and commitment to brotherhood, what Algerians nobly refer to as the sanctity of shared bonds, and despite repeated direct and indirect warnings urging conspirators to reconsider and recover a shred of lost dignity, the fabricated UAE persists in turning its back on old ties of history, solidarity, and sacrifice. It is a state younger than the simplest of achievements of post-independence Algeria, emerging from a revolution that stands for sovereignty and pride. This artificial entity, which has transformed into a hub for discord and provocation, returned once again through one of its media outlets to spread a new wave of filth, venom, and disgrace among Algerians. But this time, it has crossed every red line, violating boundaries that Algeria, with all its nobility and grandeur, can neither ignore nor forgive. This vulgarity dared to attack the dearest components of Algerians, more precious than oil or gas, their national unity, constitutional foundations, and collective identity. Each time it explodes a vile soul or an ideological peddler traded in the marketplace of history, offering toxic questions followed by shameless answers that lack academic merit or serious intellectual grounding. This reckless program repeats an old broken record, desperately trying to cast doubt on Algerian nationhood and to sow discord. The small leaders who run the fabricated UAE have clearly forgotten or pretend to forget that they have sold what they do not even own: honor, dignity, and self-respect, surrendered to war criminals who massacre children, women, and the elderly. They have forgotten that the proud Algerian is a descendant of Massinissa, Yugurta, Kahina, Uqba ibn Nafa, Tariq ibn Ziyad, Barbaros, Amir Abd al-Qadir, Sheikh Amoud, Ibn Badis, Bilwuzdad, Bin Boulaid, Bin Mhidi, Karim Belqasem, Rabah Bitat, Boudiyaf, and Dush Murad. An Algerian whose roots run deep in the soil and whose soul stands tall can overlook many things when it comes from a brother or supposed ally, but never an assault on his unity, identity, and constitution. The hand that reaches out in offense will be severed, the foot that steps across sacred lines will be cut off, and the tongue that spits venom will be ripped out. Some may label this response as excessive nationalism or emotional fervor, but to those who possess true heritage and dignity, it is only natural. This is a nation that paid with the blood of millions of martyrs to reclaim its unity, its identity, and its sovereignty. The petty rulers of this artificial state can neither comprehend nor appreciate these lofty values, for one cannot give what one does not possess. Honor is a crown only visible to the honorable, never to the illegitimate. Algeria will not regret what it once offered in support of this manufactured ally, nor will it sit idly, repeating the poet's lament, the injustice of kin cuts deeper. Like the noble always do, Algeria will respond in kind and with greater force.
To another story now, Algeria celebrates today the World Press Freedom Day. Many efforts were made by the state to improve the sector through regulations, laws and advantages. The high authorities are determined to lay the foundation stone for a strong media front to face all the challenges. Laetitia Sadqawi reports.
On World Press Freedom Day 2025, Algeria marked a significant step forward in improving media rights and transparency under the leadership of President Abdelmajid Tebboune to foster a free, more structured and stronger media landscape. National media outlets are benefiting from the support of the state when it comes to defending the image of Algeria, as the Minister of Communication, Mohamed Mazian, has stated. Earlier this year, the President of the Republic met with directors of public and private media outlets to hear their concerns and work towards improving professional conditions. This ongoing dialogue between the state and media professionals has resulted in significant progress, widely welcomed by the journalism community. One of the cornerstones initiatives has been the completion of a modern regulatory framework that defines the rights and responsibilities of journalists, aiming to strengthen professionalism and transparency in the field. A special status for journalists is also being developed, offering clear protection and guidelines for the exercise of the profession. In addition, the revival of the Press Support Fund, covering print, audiovisual, and digital media, as well as new training and development programs, reflect the state's investment in building strong, diverse, and competitive media capable of standing alongside the world's leading institutions. Faced with global challenges, national media outlets are uniting their efforts to form a resilient and coherent media front capable of defending Algeria's honorable image and positions on the international stage. These achievements lay the foundations of a dynamic press that carries forward the vision of a prosperous and modern Algeria.
To France now, suspicious of nepotism, dubious spending and murky campaign financing now shadow Eric Ciotti for a figure who champions order and rigor. The contrast is striking, fueling tension in an already charged political landscape. Menal Mafa and Rina Lorari with more.
Il faut aussi une réponse très ferme contre les États qui nourrissent cette immigration illégale. Et je pense en particulier à cet État voyou qu'est l'Algérie. Nous devons enfin prendre des sanctions très fortes contre l'Algérie.
Eric Ciotti drawn criticism after describing Algeria as a rogue republic, reinforcing his image as a moral hardliner and defender of republican order. Echoing similar remarks from Bruno Retailleau, Ciotti's comments were quickly rebuked by politicians across the spectrum. Many condemned the tone as paternalistic, arguing that France should not position itself as a school teacher judging sovereign nations.
Terrorisation du régime algérien, mais la vocation de la France, Monsieur Rambaud, je suis heureux de vous le dire, parce que si un jour vous...
This is how you characterize the Algerian regime, but France's role is not to judge governments, it is to recognize them. We are not school teachers labeling regimes as dictatorships.
La grande démocratie, la France n'a pas à juger les gouvernements.
While Eric Ciotti presents himself as a moral watchdog, he has been under investigation for allegedly retaining public resources after leaving his post as departmental council president. Reports say he continued to benefit from perks reserved for top officials, raising questions about the gap between his rhetoric and his own ethical conduct.
Dans sa niche parlementaire en juin 2025.
In his June 2025 parliamentary proposal, he aims to pass a law removing immediate enforcement of sentences for convicted politicians. If adopted, it would apply to him as well, since milder criminal laws take effect immediately, which is a deeply troubling move.
Immédiatement. Donc je trouve ça effectivement très problématique.
Anticorps Association has filed a report accusing Eric Ciotti's campaign team of the Alpes-Maritimes Chamber of Commerce, including on the night of the 2022 legislative runoff. The group also points to the use of a government vehicle for political trips and public employees working on partisan matters. Now under 3 parliamentary investigations, one involving his former partner Caroline Mon-Ciotti, who denounces political manipulation, finds moralizing rhetoric increasingly at odds with his own alleged practices.
Still in France, as ordinary citizens face inflation and austerity, a string of high-profile scandals reveals a troubling pattern among political elites: misuse of public funds, light judicial consequences, and luxury disguised as a duty. More insight with both Melissa Lila Balaman and Raouf Hamouche.
For years, the French Republic has tolerated questionable public spending by some of its leaders, fostering a climate where personal privilege seems to trump public accountability. Marine Le Pen, head of the National Rally and a vocal critic of corrupt elites, has been under formal investigation since 2018. The European Parliament demands over 300,000 euros from her, alleging she used European Union funds to pay party staff working in France. Christian Estrosi, mayor of Nice and former minister, has also drawn criticism for extravagant official trips. A 2015 visit to New York reportedly cost over 100,000 euros, prompting accusations of using public funds for non-essential travel, often with large delegations. In 2020, former Prime Minister François Fillon was sentenced to 5 years in prison, 2 to be served, along with a 375,000 euros fine and 10 years of ineligibility. He was found guilty of embezzling public funds in a fake jobs scandal involving his wife. Though his sentence was slightly reduced on appeal, many viewed it as lenient, reinforcing the perception of a two-tier justice system. Meanwhile, French citizens are urged to accept inflation, budget cuts, and economic restraint, while some of their representatives seem to operate under a different set of rules. These are not isolated cases. Across the political spectrum, officials have been linked to embezzlement and lavish trips, disguised as official duties. The pattern points to a deeper systemic issue, raising serious concerns about transparency, equality before the law, and the integrity of democratic governance.
We remain always in France. The killing of Boubacar Sissi while praying in a mosque sparked national outrage. If political leaders hesitated to name the victim, a tribute was paid by the Paris Grand Mosque and the faithful denouncing this heinous crime. The full story with both Afaf Belouchet and Manal Maffa.
After initial resistance, the Senate observed a minute of silence without naming Boubacar Sissi, who was killed while praying in a mosque. The vague tribute and debate over whether to call it Islamophobic or anti-Muslim have deepened frustration in a grieving Muslim community, where the silence and the words feel painfully inadequate. I think there are a lot of Islamophobes in France. It is a real problem. Often I think there are more Islamophobes because there are a lot of channels that feed Islamophobia, for example. In television and mainstream media, Muslims are consistently portrayed negatively, reinforcing harmful stereotypes and deepening social divides. Amid rising anger, the rector of the Paris Grand Mosque called on to act quickly and decisively against all Muslim violence. Islamophobia is a national scourge. It must be recognized and condemned as a national crisis. Acts targeting our community must be clearly identified, measured and punished for what they are: Islamophobic. After the absence prayer, the Imam reminded worshippers that justice is central to Islam and must be upheld just as firmly by the Republic.
Le message que nous tirons de cette prière, c'est que nous, les musulmans...
The prayer reminds us that as Muslims we must remain patient as Allah commands, but also firm in claiming our rights like any human being on French soil.
On reste toujours à réclamer nos droits comme tout être humain qui est sur le sol français.
Hundreds gathered to honor Abu Bakr. His body will arrive at the Grand Mosque of Paris on May 5th for a final prayer before repatriation, a farewell turning grief into remembrance.
You are still watching Canal Algérie. Coming up in our news. A massive mobilization is slated for today in Mali following the latest measures taken by the multi-junta, rescinding the national charter and paving the way for political parties' dissolution. Welcome back to our news. As Mali's military junta is cracking down the political parties and threatening democracy by claiming 5 more years in power for Gaita, a massive mobilization is slated for today in the country to follow this risky move. The ins and outs with Melissa Lila Balaman and Yanis Etbelkas.
In Mali, democracy is faltering and the political class is fighting back. The military rulers have taken a new step by repealing the charter that governs political parties, a move heavy with implications, paving the way for their possible dissolution.
Ils s'élèvent contre les institutions et ils créent une situation de peur absolue.
They rise up against institutions and create fear to control the arena. How can someone who came to power through 2 coups claim to lead Mali indefinitely? Is this dictatorship? Mali and Africa are saying, never again.
Les 5 premières années, 5 années suivantes sans limite dans le temps.
But the opposition refuses to surrender. Around 100 parties have formed a coalition calling for mass mobilization and public rallies to defend democratic gains and press freedom.
Je voudrais lancer un vibrant appel à toutes les forces patriotiques, politiques, sociales.
I call on all patriotic, political, social, intellectual and cultural forces to gather on Saturday, May 3rd at 2 p.m. at the Palace of Culture to say yes to democracy, the rule of law and a stable, reconciled Mali.
Pour dire oui à l'état de droit, pour dire oui au respect de la Constitution du Mali.
Since the coups of 2020 and 2021, dissent has been silenced through arrests, pressure, and party dissolutions. The junta governs through fear and tight control of public discourse, yet the constitution adopted in 2023 still guarantees multi-party democracy and fundamental freedoms. But according to several political analysts, that constitution remains largely symbolic. The reality on the ground tells a different story, and the outcome seems already decided.
Le pluralisme démocratique concerne les multipartismes.
Democratic pluralism means multiple parties, press freedom and union rights. Our shared shield is the Constitution. We demand it to be respected.
L'unique bouclier.
Should the Constitutional Court endorse the junta's decisions, the opposition warns it will no longer recognize the court's legitimacy, and if the court turns a blind eye, they will demand its dissolution.
J'espère que les partis politiques et le peuple du Mali se rappelleront que c'est à la suite d'un combat épique.
Let us remember the epic fight of March 26, 1951, which established our democratic framework. Today's transitional authorities cannot erase that. Silencing political parties is an acceptable step backward.
S'il y a une option fondamentale démocratique en faveur de l'état de droit, c'est quand même que ce sont les partis politiques qui concourent au suffrage.
In a Sahel increasingly dominated by military rule, Mali is entering a new phase. The opposition is fighting for its survival, and with it, the democratic future of the nation.
Still in the African continent, in a joint communique crowning the visit paid by the Ghanaian Foreign Affairs Minister to Algeria, Algeria and Ghana stressed the necessity to favour dialogue and reconciliation to settle conflict in Africa, expressing, by the way, their deep concern regarding the security and humanitarian crisis in the Sahel region. The two sides reaffirmed their common will to consolidate partnership and to upgrade cooperation in priority sectors within an agreed upon roadmap outlining the priority measures. They highlighted as well the importance of a global reform of the UN, notably the Security Council, to ensure a fair representation of Africa in the world governance. The communique put forward the common efforts to combat terrorism and cross-border crime, stressing the need to face extremism and drugs and weapons trafficking. As for Western Sahara, both sides urged the necessity to reach a political settlement on the basis of the UN Charter and the AU to ensure the right of self-determination to the Sahrawi people, reiterating the right of the Palestinian people for an independent and sovereign state. Zionist airstrikes have intensified across Gaza, killing entire families and causing widespread destruction despite daily executions of civilians. The Zionist entity threatens to expand its ground operation, evading political and peace commitments. Wissam Abu Zaid and Menam Afa with the latest.
In In Khan Yunis, southern Gaza, Palestinian mothers said their painful goodbyes to their children after an airstrike that hit their homes. This continues the deadly campaign against the Palestinian people, claiming the lives of innocent civilians, men, women, and children, in a relentless bloodshed that lasted for 18 months. Both my wife and daughter were killed. My daughter was born and died during this genocide. In recent hours, occupation airstrikes have intensified across several areas, leaving dozens dead and injured, including this child martyr, who was painfully retrieved from under the rubble. Civil defense teams also managed to rescue a woman trapped beneath the debris left by the bombing of her home. Our teams uncovered a lot of injured and martyrs and took them to hospitals. All of the victims were children and women. Among dozens of Zionist airstrikes launched across southern, central and northern provinces, entire families were martyred and extensive destruction was left in residential areas. It all happened suddenly. Everything collapsed on our heads. Despite the daily systematic executions by Zionist forces across the Gaza Strip, from north to south, targeting innocent civilians, the Zionist entity continues to threaten an expansion of its ground military operation, attempting to evade any political or peace obligations.
To another story now, some countries seem to lose sovereignty over their own patrimony on all levels, Morocco being the prime example where voices are rising against the significant presence of Zionist groups in the agriculture sector. Leticia Sidqawi and Badia Ammarni has more details.
Concern prevails across Moroccan agricultural regions as many rural stakeholders express growing unease over what they perceive as a gradual erosion of their sovereignty over farming practices. Several voices from within the agricultural sector have sounded the alarm about external influence, particularly from the Zionist entity dictating the types of crops to be cultivated and imposing restrictions on irrigation practices.
Large Zionist companies have arrived. They operate in the fields of seeds, irrigation equipment, particularly drip irrigation, and hydroseed fertilizers have monopolized the market.
The Zionist network has changed agricultural methods and even crops with varieties that are not adapted to the nature of Moroccan land, requiring large quantities of water. The same network gives priority to Zionist farmers who have seized Moroccan land and export their products in the name of Morocco, whose revenues are paid into the treasury of the Zionist entity, while the Moroccan farmer has become a simple laborer on his hand. Nearly 90% of irrigation equipment is owned by Zionist companies. There is no technology transfer or cooperation in this field. The opening of the market has led to food dependency.
خلاصة القول أن ما كاين لا نقل تكنولوجيا ولا تعاون تكنولوجي ولا شي حاجة، كاين فتح الأسواق، كاين تبعية غذائية.
In order to maintain power, the Makhzen system is ready to compromise all foundations of the state to sell out its people in the name of normalization.
With this, we come to the end of our news. Tomorrow, another day. Other news, take care and bye-bye for now. And keep tuning to our channel. Bye-bye for now.